right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Cheney Clemens. I am the Director of Youth Services at Roberta's house. It is a lot of us on this call today, on this meeting today. So I have already taken the liberty to mute everyone, and I'm gonna pause everyone's videos just so there's no outside distractions. I just want to welcome everyone to our meeting today for our training, Children Grieve Too. I'm really excited that all of you decided to register and take advantage of the wonderful training that we will have. So again, as you come on, if you see me or if you see that your video has been stopped and also that everyone is muted, but we will get started. So we have, it's 4 of us today. 2 of us will be doing the training. We have Allie Lofter, who is our manager of special projects. Her and I will be in the comment section and answering any questions that you guys might have. Also, we know that we are talking about grief and sometimes it can be very heavy. So if you would like to go into a break room just to have a one-on-one conversation, we will have the break rooms available. Just reach out to Allie or I directly so that we can make sure that we are able to still assist you even during the training. We have Miss Laditra Johnson. Wave, Laditra. Laditra is one of our school-based coordinators. Laditra and also Dorinda Thomas is our manager of youth services, and our training will be ran again by Laditra and Dorinda. And again, Allie and I will be in the comment in the chat section answering any questions. And again, if you do need to step in to have a private conversation with either of us, we will have a breakout room available. So without further ado, I'm going to cut my camera off and cut Allie's camera off so that you guys can focus directly on Laditra and Dorinda. So thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad you're here with us today. And my name is Dorinda Thomas. So learning objectives for today focuses on exploring what student grief looks like. We'll be describing strategies to effectively meet the needs of grieving students. We'll also explore how grief issues can impact a student's academic performance. We would discuss the environmental, cultural, and personality variables that impact grief, as well as exploring how others' crises in the student's life impact their grief.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Laditra Johnson. As Ms. Clemens stated before, I'm a school-based coordinator here at Roberta's house. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the tasks of grief. So there are 4 different tasks that people go through or students go through when they're grieving the loss or the death of someone. So first, to accept the reality of the loss. So just being able to acknowledge that that occurred. E is experiencing the pain of the loss. So allowing those feelings to occur, really being able to safely explore those feelings. A is adjusting to the new environment without the lost person. So being able to make that transformation to find meaning from this loss that has occurred or this death that's occurred. And then R is reinvesting in a new reality. So making future goals and being able to do positive things in their lives after the death or loss of someone.
There are 6 essential needs of grieving children. And these needs are developed from the theorist Alan Warfelt, in which Roberta's house encompassed all of our programming around his theories. For children, they need to acknowledge the reality of the death. They have needs to approach the pain of the loss while being supported. They need adults in their lives. Need to remember the person who died. That's very important for them to have positive memories. Develop a new self-identity. Yes, their life will change and they need to know how to continue living and flourishing without their special person who died. Find meaning in what has happened. They too need to learn, and we are here to teach them how to define grief and mourning and continue experiencing support in the future. Children need to have someone that they can lean on, that can help them through their grieving process.
So where can you find grief? Grief is everywhere. And just as we are born, it is natural for us to die and to experience all types of losses, whether there be incarceration, divorce, deportation, and other losses. But it's really about how we support our students and what we teach them to do when losses occur.
Grief is something that's so amazing that when it comes into your schools, it doesn't stop at the front office to check in. It comes with the territory. It comes in the book bag, this heavy load, which sits in the front of the classroom. It is truly an uninvited guest. It has the power to disrupt the classroom. It has the power to mess with the child's mental and physical abilities to concentrate on their lessons. In fact, teachers and professional, it actually is so powerful. It has the ability to distract you while you're teaching.
So unfortunately, whether you're a first year teacher or you're seasoned, you've been teaching for over 20 years, you will be acquainted with grief, whether it be death or the other methods of loss we talked about. In schools, they have all types of specialists. So behavioral, social emotional learning, professionals, you may have physical therapy, occupational therapy, but there are no special teachers for grief. But grief is in the classroom every day.
Every day, grief comes to school. Every day, it comes into your schools. Every day, there's a student or students that are dealing with the effects of grief, the emotional impact of grief, the mental impact of grief, the physical and social and spirituality. Everything comes with that student that comes into your classroom, and it sometimes is the effect of grief.
Okay, so student grief and trauma is impacted by possibly previous losses. So one thing to acknowledge here is just because a student has had a previous loss, it doesn't mean it's going to affect them in the same way. So other traumatic experiences and ongoing stressors that may be in the community or the home can really impact grief, even though they're experiencing grief, that can be traumatic as well. Other things that occur during that time, repeated catastrophic events. So before they can finally begin to deal with grief from one situation, something else occurs. So that can really make it traumatic for students as well. And then continued threats. So things that can happen at any time. You may have some students that will express worry or anxiety about the future because they lost their loved one, they never saw it coming. So then they may question, are they next, or what is coming next? So regarding environmental and cultural and personality variables in the grief and loss process, what will affect it? That student's personality. Each student is unique, so their grief may look just as unique as they are. Then also their experience with death and loss. So is this their first death or loss that occurred that may make it really traumatic? Or to be honest, for students that have lost loved ones already, it doesn't mean that it's going to make it easier for them to deal with the loss or death of a special person. Then also the circumstances of the death. Was it something that was a prolonged illness? Or was it a sudden death or a sudden person leaving the home? That may really, really affect your students. And then also the student's relationship with with that particular person that has died or left the family. Were they prepared? Was that relationship a good relationship? That will really impact on how that student is going to react. And then also that students' family beliefs and rituals. So does this family believe that children are going to be part of the ceremony, that they can be part of the funeral, or that the family even talks? Does the family even talk about the loss, especially if the loss was something that is considered shameful? It may be something that the student may not be able to express. So that's why it's really important for educators to be comfortable with talking and comfortable with allowing their students to share. And then finally, their morals and value system. So where does that family believe that the loved one is gone? So even talking with them about it and being supportive to them about it as well.
Thank you, Laditra. Grief impacts the stages of development. It has a major influence on every stage of development from age 3 to age 17. And so you may see students in your school who are grieving, who may demonstrate maladaptive behaviors. They may be running your halls, you know, the elopers, the ones that got to run. They may demonstrate destruction of property. There may be some decompensation as it relates to their abilities, as it relates to their abilities in the educational environment. Younger students are known to also, and some older students, to actually begin to lose control over issues such as soiling their pants or having other problems. Because in generally, when you get older, the more you understand about grief and death as you're dealing with ages 11 through 17, where they understand that death is final. The youth and adult brain are so different. One fact is that the girl who is age 11, her brain is fully developed. And then a boy, when he's 14, it is fully developed. But even though the brain is fully developed, I want you to hear this. It is not until the mid-20s, the late 20s, that the development and processing of life issues in the brain has come together. So therefore, for a young person who's experiencing puberty, the gray matter is not fully formed. Their processing and decision making is off. In addition to their process and decision making being off, that impacts their ability to even make good decisions. And the other thing is that the young people require 9 to 10 hours sleep during this period. So you know they're not getting 9 to 10 hours sleep. That shows us that's why they have problems with processing. So with these problems of processing and puberty and development and a sleep pattern being disturbed, on top of that, they're dealing with issues of grief and loss. And it's a very difficult stage anyway, but when there's grief and loss compounded, it becomes more of a problem for them throughout their lives and during this stage and period.
So what does youth grief or what does student grief look like? So I just want to make sure we know that, you know, each student is different and unique. So their grief is going to look different and unique. But here's some things to help you. So with you may see some overwhelming sadness. So a student, you really want to check on that, because if it becomes too overwhelming or it lasts too long, it can develop into a depression, and then that you would really need mental health services. You may see some overachievement. So that student that doesn't like mistakes, that is obsessed with getting the A. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you may see some students that they have a drop in academic performance because they're preoccupied with their feelings regarding their grief or loss. You may see a lack of focus. You may also see, to medicate, self-medicate, you may see drug or alcohol use or increase or beginning of sexual activity. You may also see no outward response. And it's really important to highlight the word outward. Just because we don't see it outwardly doesn't mean that that something's not going on inwardly. So it's really important to acknowledge that. Also, you may see some anger, some impatience, lack of interest or motivation. So you have a student that used to be an athlete and participate in sports or dance. they may decide they don't want to do those things anymore. So that might be a really big cry out for help. You also may see some worrying because of how their loved one died, or they may be worried that they're going to lose someone else close to them. You may see guilt, especially if a student had a bad relationship or a rough relationship with their special person. They may believe that, they may feel bad because they're relieved that this person has left or has died. Or they may feel like they could have done something to help and prevent this loss or death. They may also feel a sense of loneliness, especially if a student is in those developmental stages with egocentrism. They may believe that, they're the only person going through this. So that's why it's important to support our students at this time. And we also may see some withdrawal symptoms as well.
Thank you, Laditra. And during these maladaptive behaviors points in their lives, they're dealing with trying to comprehend what is going on, as we shared, because we know mourning is what is expressed on the outside. And we want to teach young people the proper way to mourn. And grieving is what is on the inside. So with these maladaptive behaviors, young people who are grieving, who've learned coping skills based on environmental and what they see, and it's natural for them to be angry, to be experimental with drugs at this stage and point in their lives, because they are dealing with so much, and we may see that more in adolescents who are grieving. Eating disorders. We know we lose our appetites when we're going through changes. And the young people, the children and the teens, they deal with the same thing. Somatic health issues. We know when we're going through things as it relate to grief and loss, we get stomach aches. The children do too. We get headaches. The children, they do too. We just don't feel like being bothered, and the children deal with that as well. But when you're dealing with the issues of depression, we encourage you, as was shared before, to make sure you seek help for that young person that same day. People go through different stages as they're dealing with grief, but also they're dealing with the task of grief, and it's a lot to embody. So please look at these maladaptive behaviors and evaluate where you stand, because the child who's grieving in your class, you may be focused more on what we like to talk about, the antecedent, and not even know what the antecedent is. And then we go into these other issues of maladaptive behaviors that impact the antecedent. Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. Renzer. So what happens when our students don't have a place or safe space to express their grief or loss? It becomes what we call unresolved grief, and it can become complicated grief, which can be really, really traumatic for students. And it can contribute to a greater burden for illness, whether that be physical illness or mental illness, and then those maladaptive behaviors Mr. Renzer just spoke about. So Columbia University did a study, and in the survey of 300 incarcerated teens, they found that 96% of them had lost someone significant in their lives. And that's not to say it causes, but it definitely was a contributing factor. And then another study says that 85% of all prisoners on death row had experienced the death of their parent during childhood. So it just goes to show, even though it happened during their childhood, it did impact them throughout their whole lives. And then next, the Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry states that 1 in 5 bereaved children is likely to develop a psychiatric disorder. Not to have anywhere safe to express your feelings, or feeling that you have the right to grieve, can really impact the mental state. And then the highest rates of reported difficulties were found in boys. And, taking an estimate of this could be possibly due to the societal view of man up and boys don't cry. And so it shows that it's really important for us to allow our female and male students to have that opportunity to do what they need to do, to cry, to share, and to have their grief experience shared with others.
Yes, thank you, Laditra. That was very important. Now, hopefully you all are getting some great information here. was one of the most important tools that I like to review and use as relates to grief is the childhood bereavement estimation model. And this model was developed by the Judy Center and is sponsored by New York Life. So basically, if you ever go to the childhood bereavement estimate model, you can actually pull up information about our state, which I've done here in Maryland. I'm not going to read everything that's here, but one thing I want you to see is that one in 14 children in Maryland will experience the death of a parent or sibling before the age of 18. Let that sink in. And this study was done in 2019. Maryland, we rate 28% of what's going on as it deals with the other states. So they're going to be losing parents, siblings, and we know other family members, and there are other reasons why the loss and death are taking place. So when you get a chance, we encourage you to check out this tool. It does not go from city to county and different places in Maryland, but Maryland holistically. So please check out the childhood bereavement estimate model to learn more about how grief is impacting our young people as it impacts the classroom.
Okay, so what happens when the death or loss of a student occurs? I know it says death, but I would also like to highlight what happens if a student transfers. That can be really traumatic and has been really traumatic, we have found in groups. The entire class is bereaved, they're frightened, and they're uncertain of what to do. So it is really important to first listen to their feelings, but also listen to your own, really allowing yourself to work through those, your feelings about that situation. Also, look for an opportunity to let the students know that you care. Allow them an opportunity to have a conversation about that student. Even, allowing them to decorate the desk of the student that is deceased or has left the school, and allowing them to decorate the desk, the chair, maybe even the locker, but just allowing them to acknowledge that it has happened. Because sometimes when we don't acknowledge things, the students automatically assume that they're not welcome to share. So please allow those opportunities.
In schools, it's very important not to just show that you care, but to practice empathy. Empathy is something that should be in the fiber of everyone's being and should just come out bursting when someone is going through challenges. But however, it doesn't a lot of times. So you, myself, everyone is educators. We have the power to help change that environment. So one thing, getting the family's permission or the guardian regarding sending cards, having the students to make cards for the classmate who's experienced death. Perhaps calling to share your condolences. A lot of times you may visit the home if given granted permission from the family, attend the funeral or memorial services. One thing children like to show that you really are caring about them is to bring them a special treat. And you can ask the family, what type of treat do they like? I know you're saying, well, bring the child a treat, but let's think about it. When we go to someone's home after there's a death or even a significant loss that have occurred, we like to bring things that we believe that the adults would like to eat. I know when my dad died, it still sits with me, how a member of the church brought each of us a gallon of ice cream and the type of ice cream that we each like to eat. My favorite today is chocolate mint. And so when students respond to grief, we've been through this, but I want you to remember, they got physical stuff going on, you all. They don't know what to do with what's going on the inside of them. So it explodes out emotionally. You may be cursed out, a chair may be thrown at you, a book thrown at you. They may walk away. Those behaviors are natural reactions to loss. However, there may be performance issues academically. Some kids don't even feel like going to school doing their schoolwork. It's hard for them to focus. They're confused, they're lost, they're perplexed, and they're disoriented, and they are bewildered because they're dealing with grief and they don't know how and have a place to properly let their feelings out. And you have some that just internalize holistically and they're very sad, and you have some that will become overachievers. But above all, we have to teach our students how to cope and teach them positive coping skills and be a support base and remind them that your anger is a normal reaction to grief. We are part of the village.
Okay, so with that in mind, thank you, Mr. Renza. Some helpful tips for educators are first, number one, being aware of your own loss issues. And if you feel like it's hard to do that, or you may need some assistance with that, it's no shame in reaching out to a mental health professional. But then also sharing your thoughts, feelings, and concerns. Children can be really empathetic when you allow yourself to share with them and be transparent about how you're feeling, and it may even encourage them to share. And then having an open door policy for student families to share with the school regarding that death or loss. Like Mr. Renza talked about, the issues that we might see if we don't know what the behavior is caused by. We tend to think, oh, this child is, just having a rough time. We don't know what's going on. But if there's an open door policy that student's family, letting then you can anticipate that behavior and give them the opportunity to share. But then also watching for academic decline. And like we said, the lack of focus and preoccupation with the death, how it occurred, and those emotions that they don't know how to positively express. Then also being the one to initiate conversations about the grief and death. To be honest, if you open the platform, what I've found working with students, they will share. And then also avoiding euphemisms such as passed on, left us, they're with Jesus. So developmentally, when children are younger, they take things really, really literal. So if you're saying that they passed on, left us, went to sleep, some of the students may be afraid to go to sleep. Because you're not using language that is letting them know this person died, explaining how the death occurred or what caused the loss, not really using intentional language. So really be careful with that. And then also using the deceased person's name or family role. So allowing them to acknowledge that it was grandma, whatever they called that person, really letting them use that, showing the dignity and respect for that loved one or that special person. And then finally, listening, letting the students share when they're ready as well. That is really important. And, do not force the students to share if they're not ready. I know that we've had students go through group before, and some of them, they've gone through 2 sessions, 2 set of cycles with us, and they still haven't shared with the loved one. Some of them may not be able to vocally express that they've lost or experienced the death of a loved one. So just be patient with them. Also, allowing yourself to be honest and say, I don't know. It's definitely okay to say I don't know, because we don't know everything. And I think that children and students, they are really respectful and grateful to us when we let them know, when we stay honest with them and let them know, I don't know. And then grief may be intermittent. So you may see a child that's out on the playground, smiling, laughing, having fun. And then the next second they may be crying. So that happens, and that's completely normal. And in this process, all of it, be patient with the students. Let them know that you're here for them, and never say, I know exactly how you feel. So from students, talking to students and adults, they say that is one of the most insensitive and frustrating things that they've ever heard people say. I know exactly how you feel. Everybody's grief is unique and different. So to say you know exactly how they feel kind of minimizes their grief experience. Also, grief is often expressed through behavior. We talked about that behaviors that may be positive and some that may not be so positive. And then you also need to provide opportunities to express feelings. So whether it's an informal session of letting them talk to you after class, or, being able to offer a group discussion if you feel that you're safe enough to do that, and have other people available to help with that. And then if grief is severe or prolonged, please seek counseling for your students. So if your student says that they're experiencing, suicidal thoughts, or if you've continued to see that same intensity of anger and those maladaptive behaviors over a long period of time, do not be afraid to reach out to a mental health provider, especially if you see the suicidal ideation. Reach out that day, even that second, if possible.
Thank you, Ms. Laditra. As educators, you definitely can help in this process, especially when you have your own classrooms, your own offices. Take a corner and have it dedicated for students to relax. Yes, a lot of times those students end up in our offices anyway. So let's have a place maybe with some pillows and some books, and have some different manipulative tools around, sensory motor tools around, some stress balls, art supplies, even have a CD player that you can play some soft music, along with self-regulating reminders around on the walls, encouraging students to breathe, giving them ideas of what to do when you feel like you're about to lose it, counting to 10. The list goes on and on. And we know as we deal with COVID-19, it's important for us to make sure everything we use continues to be hygienic as well as disinfected. So make sure what you're getting now, that you can spray the disinfectant, you can use the different wipes on. But above all, we want to make sure we're providing our young people with a safe place to grieve, and that we understand that they're grieving, and we want to help them to develop positive coping skills.
Thank you, Mr. Renza. So with that in mind, Roberta's house, especially with COVID going on, we put together some packets for our elementary, middle, and high school students. So first, this is our middles packet. So this is for students that are in elementary and middle school. So we put together, each packet will have mandalas in it, but some of the things we have for our middles, elementary school, middle school students is our virtue word search. We have a list of coping skills, things, positive things that they can try, and then evaluate whether they were helpful. So we're hoping that at this time, if they can develop those positive coping skills, that that's something that they can carry over into other situations that frustrate them, whether it be grief, whether it be being frustrated at school. And then also a coping circle. So being able to understand that there are things we can control, and then there are things that we can't control, but like really being able to focus and use those coping skills for the things that we can't control, but then change those things that we can. And then for our teen packet with kids, teens loving music, we put together a list where they can write down their favorite songs they can use when they're in different moods, because music can be really healing and a great coping skill. Then we also have a place for students to write down journal entries and how they're feeling, allow them to be able to really write things out, because everybody's not in that moment of feeling upset or angry. They're not able to really speak it out, but have somewhere for them to write it down. And then finally, our mandalas that allow the students to be present in that moment, to help them to calm down. And it's also helpful for us adults as well. So you guys will be receiving a copy of both the middle and teen packets following this presentation.
At this time, we would like to acknowledge the impact that COVID-19 has had on all of us, as well as acknowledge the death of Mr. Floyd, and how we witness a murder on television. But more important, how our students witness a murder, as well as anyone grieving the death of someone or loss of someone's in their lives. So at this time, we will have a moment of silence. Thank you. Roberta's House has several programs that address the needs of grieving students and their families. And as the manager of youth services, I would like to share with you some of those programs. First, our school-based programs, which are currently being offered in 16 schools in Baltimore City. This includes elementary, middle, and high schools. Groups are offered during non-instructional times, as well as we are offering school-based summer grief groups. Let me share with you again. School-based summer grief groups that are being added as we're speaking. And these groups meet Monday through Thursday, and they will address grieving students according to their grade levels. So please stay connected with us. If you have any students, we would like to reach out to you. We also have our teen support group, which is entitled Changing the Game. And that group meets on Thursdays at 4 p.m. That's for students who are in grades 13 through 17. I'm going to throw this in because some people may be asking the question. Everything is virtual now, folks, due to COVID-19. Our Camp Aaron, please keep a watch out. That will be provided virtually as well. Additionally, our young people, let me back it up, Camp Aaron. Camp Aaron, if it was not virtual, it would take place at North Bay. It is a 3-day away camp for students between the ages of 6 and through 17 who've had a death loss. When we're dealing with our school-based programming, that is any type of loss. Someone impulsively left the family, child or sibling going into foster care, someone dealing with a parent or special person who's incarcerated, went away for college, separated or divorced individuals. These things take place as it involves school-based services. Camp Aaron is for anyone, not just Baltimore City residents. There is a process for that. And if you call that 410-235-6633 number, we will be able to help you. Outward Bound, unfortunately, we're unable to do that this year as well due to COVID-19. But with the Outward Bound Young program, the young people canoe the Potomac River. I go. It is totally rough camping. You sleep in 4 different campsites. They're cooking, they're cleaning, but also they're addressing some grief issues, and we have major fireside chats. We also have a peer ambassadors program. We found that the young persons who've been through the program love it, and they want to be able to help someone else. And we have families healing together, which is also offered virtually. And that's for families that are dealing also with death loss, where the whole family comes together in Roberta's house. And that's the whole family, including a school-age child, age 6 through adulthood, different groups for everyone, but in the same place, addressing the same issue. And we have Raise a Hope. This is a major program that helps families who have death loss due to homicides. And this program is designed for age 2 through 17. One of the things we do recognize is that when there is a death loss in the family, it impacts the whole dining experience. So this program is designed to help the families come together and share experiences. We also have the Hope program, because we found out that a lot of our teen girls have become moms of rainbow babies. Their babies are no longer here because they have died before the age of 2. So we're even available to help the young mommies as they have to navigate grief, loss, and death. And so these are our programs that deal with families at Roberta's house.
So now we're going to turn it over to Ms. Clemens for a moment.
Sorry, I was trying to get my video back up. Okay, so right now I am going to, well, first, thank you everybody for sticking in there with us. Thank you, Laditra and Dorinda. I am going to launch a poll. It's only 6 questions, but I just wanted to make sure that we give folks the opportunity to give some type of feedback for the training today. So I'm gonna put it up now. And if you can just take a moment to go through the 6 questions. They're only yes or no answers, and just tell us what you're thinking. Like I said, just to give folks the opportunity to be able to share. It is anonymous, so I don't know who's saying what, if that makes anyone more comfortable. And again, I want to reiterate, I know it was going in the chat a little bit. This recording, the training is being recorded, so I will send out the recording to everyone. Also, everyone will get a copy of both the middle and high school activity mental health packets that we created. So you will get that as well to use with your students, and you can give that out to them, whether it's in person or send it virtually. I know we worked with one school that was passing it out to the students when they were coming to pick up either laptops or lunches and those type of things. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys did have some tools, that you were able to leave the training with some tools to be able to share with your students.
Okay, so thank you guys for coming to the training. We really, really appreciate you. And right before we leave, we have a pledge that we do with our students and all of our families. And it says, I care for you, you care for me, and we care for each other. And then I'm going to ask that you do it 2 more times, even though we don't hear you. I care for you, you care for me, and we care for each other. One more time. Go for it, Mr. Renza. I care for you, you care for me,
and we
care
for each other.
Thank you so much for coming, and if there are any questions, we'll be available. You have to unmute, Miss Cheney.
Sorry, I said thank you everyone again for coming. We are going to stick around if you have any questions. We can answer some more questions in the chat. Don't forget, again, check your email. Take the poll if you didn't get a chance to do it yet. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate you.